Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jared Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold said so. Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah. New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 for ya.
Tweet us using the handle @HeelToTheFace.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jared.
I might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Bigger, badder, and better than before. The Heel to the Face podcast for the second week of January 2018 is on the air. We are on YouTube. We are on iTunes. We are on Rat Pack Radio, and we are glad that you could join us once again here for another edition, our first live edition on YouTube, where you can actually see our faces. No more just audio, no more just graphics. We are ready, and we are excited to do this. For sure, 2018 is going to be the best year of the podcast for us, and what a way to kick it off. Don't forget, Icebreaker21 on Twitter, Jared Wicks on Twitter here as well, but most importantly, @HeelToTheFace on Twitter. And let's kick things off. It's time to start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening with a 20-minute time limit.
So let's get right to it. Wrestle Kingdom, we told you last week we couldn't really get to it because we didn't see much of the program. I saw all 6 hours of it last week. I'm ready to talk, and one of the things I want to correct on is now I know why it was on a Thursday night. Now I know why it was on January the 4th, and it is a tradition before even the Wrestle Kingdoms. New Japan Pro Wrestling and the Tokyo Dome run a show on January the 4th every single year, regardless of what day it is. I'm not sure. I tried looking into if that was a holiday of some sort, you know, like a New Year's Day tradition. I did not find that out, but January 4th at Tokyo Dome is a tradition, and I want to start with, obviously, anybody who watched it, they know the reviews. It was a great show, and my personal takeaways, let's get to that. Let's just, I don't want to, you know, just give you more fuel for the traditional fodder. I want to give some personal takeaways, and let's start with the pre-show. Now, they have this great elaborate stage just like WrestleMania, and I'm not going to get into the pre-show when it comes to the match itself, which was like a Royal Rumble-esque type of match. But the participants in this Royal Rumble-style match on the pre-show at Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Wrestling at the Tokyo Dome, they didn't come down via the main entrance ramp. They came out where there was some dugouts that they use when they use for baseball, and if you noticed, if you watched any of it, when the matches were over, nobody went back up the ramp. They went out through the crowd
that's so
and
weird.
out a different way, which kept the show flowing because then you have wrestlers leaving when you have new matches starting. But I liked it for the pre-show. They came in and out, not on the entrance ramp. And what I liked about that the most is because it's a pre-show.
True.
That's a pre-show.
Yeah.
WrestleMania, all these pay-per-views that have quote-unquote pre-shows, I don't call them pre-shows. WrestleMania isn't a 5-hour show with a 2-hour pre-show. It's a 7-hour show. If I have to be in the arena at that time, then that's not a pre-show. For example, if you're watching the Super Bowl and your ticket says 6:30, you're not getting in there at 3:30. You're getting in there at 6:30 because the game doesn't start until 6:30. Now, if they told you, let's say the Super Bowl, that the first quarter of the Super Bowl was on free TV and the next 3 quarters were on pay-per-view, that doesn't make the first quarter not part of the Super Bowl. So this is why I like that the pre-show, they didn't give him the pomp and circumstance. If Dean Ambrose is coming down to the ring with a WrestleMania caliber entrance and the Intercontinental title on the line, that's WrestleMania. That's not a pre-show.
Let me ask
If
you
anything,
this.
the pre-show might be better because it's on the USA Network and more eyes might be on the pre-show than on the pay-per-view.
Moving along from the pre-show itself, what did you think overall of the card? I know it got really great reviews. I watched as much as I could. There was 6 hours of content. I flipped through to see what was out there. I have to say the Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho match was 45 minutes long. I think we talked about it yesterday. I think every match was like 30 minutes at least.
Every match was the length of the Undertaker Roman Reigns match at WrestleMania last year. And, I wish WrestleMania would do this. And this is probably my big problem. So there's some kind of misconceptions going on in the world of professional wrestling. And one of the misconceptions is the kind of names or the monikers that WWE gives their events. They call WrestleMania the Super Bowl of wrestling. I remember Michael Cole a couple years ago called the Royal Rumble the equivalent of the NBA All-Star Game of wrestling. No, it's not. The NBA All-Star Game is a game in which means absolutely nothing and nobody cares about at all.
Yes.
Or any All-Star game for that matter. The Royal Rumble would be more of an equivalent to a playoff, because if WrestleMania is your Super Bowl, then the Royal Rumble is the playoff. Yeah. It's a smorgasbord of teams or a smorgasbord of wrestlers competing to see who can survive last and become the champion at the end. That's a playoff. That's the Royal Rumble.
The All-Star word.
That would be more like the Survivor Series, where it's a smorgasbord of teams kind of put together. Kobe Bryant teaming up with Michael Jordan, LeBron James teaming up with, players that he might not normally team up with. That's the Survivor Series. That's where you take a bunch of random people and you team them together to see how they would work as a cohesive unit. That's the All-Star Game. That's the Survivor Series. The Royal Rumble is the NCAA tournament of the WWE. It's a bunch of people you've never seen in the ring before, or a bunch of teams you've never seen all together before. It's a large caliber of wrestlers. It's a large caliber of teams. The comparisons are easily made. When Maven eliminated The Undertaker, that's a 16 seed beating a 1 seed.
Yes.
And at the end, the whole idea is to survive until the end and become the champion and move on to WrestleMania. Just like the NCAA tournament.
Like the NCAA
survive
tournament.
in advance. That's the Royal Rumble strategy.
It's a different format. We get it. Yes. But in essence, that's how it is.
So going back to Wrestle Kingdom and WrestleMania and the comparisons, WrestleMania says it's the Super Bowl of wrestling, but it's not, because if you watch the Super Bowl, every team doesn't get to play. WrestleMania is more like week 1 in football, in which you have a marquee matchup that everyone's excited about, but most importantly, everyone's on the card. That's not the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the 2 best. And WrestleMania, it kind of frustrating because they just want to get everybody on the card at WrestleMania, so it kind of takes away. You got to earn your spot. No, you don't, because if you're a healthy competitor in WWE, you're on the card at WrestleMania.
They just throw you in.
New Japan Wrestling, I know there's probably more wrestlers in New Japan Wrestling than made the Wrestle Kingdom card, but all the matches were important matches. There wasn't just matches to get people on the card. Every match was, you were worthy of being on the card.
Yeah, I agree, and especially, I was kind of touching with the touching base with the Kenny Omega Chris Jericho match. Watching that 45-minute bout, that was awesome. There was just good back and forth. It was good to see Chris Jericho really step it up, and it was my first real, live, quote unquote live, because I watched it like a couple days after. But I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of Kenny Omega, since I first heard
watching him without already maybe knowing the result of the match, or
it was
being
cool.
fresh, being his most fresh match.
And I have to say though, the one winged angel, his finishing maneuver, that thing's awesome. But recent news that just came out regarding Kenny Omega, he will not be in WWE in 2018.
He signed to 2019 with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I brought this up to you privately, and I'll bring it up on the show today. One thing I like about New Japan Wrestling is I'm a big UFC guy. And when I mean big UFC guy, I'm a UFC guy like your grandmother's a Super Bowl guy. And she watches the Super Bowl. She hopes for a good matchup. She doesn't know who these teams played all season. She just wants a good fight. And that's what I want with UFC. I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter. I don't watch the weigh-ins. I don't watch the build-up to the matches. I watch the matches, and I want to see good matches. New Japan Wrestling, the wrestling is so good that I'm not going to watch the weekly shows. I'm not going to, read any of the spoilers. Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho was the perfect example of it being good wrestling.
Absolutely.
Because in WWE, if Kevin Owens is fighting Chris Jericho, it's because there was 6 months or, maybe 3 months of build up to that match. And the reason you care that they're fighting is because there was 3 months of television build up. New Japan Wrestling doesn't need that. It's like Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. It just needs, I want you, you want me. Hey, that'd be cool to see you both in the ring.
Sells itself.
It sells itself.
Absolutely. 110%. I agree. Now, I was looking at the card too, reviewing the program. I did not realize Davey Boy Smith Jr. was on New Japan Wrestling. I'm not the biggest New Japan guy. I'm slowly getting involved with it, after watching some of those matches. Davey Boy Smith, you know who he is, right?
Absolutely. And here's actually one that's probably better than New. And if you didn't watch the pre-show, then you wouldn't know this. But in the Royal Rumble, and this caught me off guard. Now we all know who's on the Japanese announced team when it comes to WWE and Funaki. His tag team partner Takamichi Inoku still competing. He was in this pre-Royal Rumble, and he looked. It's funny. He's got the same look, but he looks way better in the sense of he was a cruiserweight back in the day. Now he's got that thicker build of a lot of the guys you saw on this show. He has more of the muscular build, more like what you might have saw in that Kota Ibushi versus Cody Rhodes match, more like that kind of build. So
which by the way was a good match.
Same face, bigger guy. The match that I actually liked the most out of all of this was the 4-way match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. I've heard a lot about Will Ospreay, and I've seen bits and pieces of him before. Will Ospreay and Marty Scurll, I just love those guys. Marty Scurll, he's just a part of what seems to be the Bullet Club is the new version of the NWO. Yes. And that's like so many people are in it across so many different platforms. Marty Scurll and Will Ospreay, not to take away from the homegrown Japanese talent, but I'm gonna throw those out there. The announce team said during this match if they could start a new promotion with anybody outside of Kenny Omega, and obviously, I'm not going to go this far in the sense of star power, it'd be Will Ospreay. And again, going back to the whole, I don't need the build-up, I don't need the 24 hours of Monday Night Raw to care about this match. Will Ospreay is what Rey Mysterio was when he first came in the WWE. And it's so good that I don't want to see him come in the WWE because I was that entertained by what they allow him to do here. I mean, he got on a light post, he did a backflip off it. He's what you see the Young Bucks getting advertised for a lot of times. It's not the traditional wrestling.
No.
It's not the lock and hold. It's the exciting flips. Like I said, it's what Rey Mysterio was when he came in, why people were excited, and what they had Rey Mysterio do. If you remember when he came in WWE for the very first time, they kind of made him go right out and start just immediately just flipping and jumping off of the ropes and doing the 619 like ASAP, and that's what this Will Ospreay thing was. I mean, right away, it was flip, 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 kick, flip. It was just so entertaining. And Marty Scurll, I like this. There's so many finishing moves that get old. And I've never seen this. Again, wrestling is an art form, and Marty Scurll found a way to do this. His finishing move, and I don't know so much his finishing move, but his tactic is he likes to break your fingers. Now, you're saying, how in wrestling, the reason it's never been done before, because, how can you make that exciting? And like New Japan Wrestling, he turns it into an art form where he does something to show that he's breaking your fingers, so it's not like, he's got your arm in your hand where you can't see him and the crowd doesn't know. Because if you're going to typically break someone's fingers, it's not going to be a big showmanship event. Yeah. It's not like a flip off the top rope. But he does it where like he'll hold the arm in the air and he'll punch it or he'll slap it or maybe he'll put their hands down and jump off the top rope onto their fingers. So he finds a way where the fingers are something so hard to focus on, especially in a place like the Tokyo Dome, and he can kind of bring him to the forefront where he kind of show it's. I remember he was separating a guy's fingers, same way that you kind of see like a slap, where he would hold the guy's hand up in the air, and then he would do some sort of artistic move to show you that he was like pulling the fingers apart. And I just thought that was so creative and so different. It's a finishing move or the kind of move that someone's known for. You don't really see most people are known for things that are well visible, and this was not something that normally you would think could be visible, but he made a way to make it visible.
And that's why he's super talented. I thought that match was pretty good. Personally, I really enjoyed the Cody Rhodes and Kota Ibushi. That was a good match. I thought there was great storytelling involved, and I think New Japan did the right thing by. I think Kota should have won that anyway. So I'm glad they went the right way and kept Cody Rhodes. I think if I'm not mistaken, if I'm just I'm looking over the card, I believe that I want to say Okada was the only guy that beat Cody Rhodes. If I'm not mistaken, did I read that wrong?
In New Japan Wrestling,
yeah, in singles competition, because I don't think Cody. I think it was him and Ibushi are the only two that have beaten Cody Rhodes in New Japan.
Well, it's hard to kind of keep track with the stats because a lot of these guys are going back and forth to Ring of Honor. For example, Cody Rhodes didn't defend. He was scheduled in the match that he had to defend the Ring of Honor championship, but because he lost it and Dalton Castle wasn't on the card, then he did not. Yeah. So. I'm not sure exactly if he was the only person, but Okada. There's like 5 guys who are the big names here and Okada,
the Young Bucks,
and Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and like I said, Will Ospreay. I would put him up there. Very entertaining. It was a good card, and most importantly, like I said, it was something that we can watch without. It doesn't mean 2018 is going to be the year of New Japan Wrestling. It doesn't mean that I'm going to just stop watching WWE and watch New Japan Wrestling. It's that perfect. Like once a year, just like people who don't watch football, but once a year they watch the Super Bowl and they have a party and they get all excited about it.
Absolutely.
And then they forget about it. But that doesn't mean they enjoy it any less. and I can do that with New Japan Wrestling. Tell me when the next pay-per-view is. Tell me when some of these guys are fighting again. I'll be very entertained.
You'll take a peek again.
I'm not going to just sit there and scour YouTube for every one of their matches. But next time there's a pay-per-view, next Wrestle Kingdom, I'll be right there and excited to watch it. Moving on to Monday Night Raw. So we pretty much now know what we're going to get next week, right? I mean, with the Raw essentially leading up to the 25th anniversary of Raw, I think now we know that it's going to be Miz Taraj versus the quote-unquote Shield. It seems like a matter of time before Jason Jordan's out of there.
Yeah, the thing with Jason Jordan, I think he's
getting more entertaining every week.
I personally enjoy it. I mean, I've been on the bandwagon for a few weeks now. I'm ahead of the game on that. I think honestly, I think Dean Ambrose's injury has saved his career. I hate saying it like that, but
it saved Jason Jordan's career.
Yes,
but it's been just awful for the Shield, and they just keep having this Shield reunion that's not truly the Shield. Again,
somebody
going
gets hurt,
back
sick,
to TLC. Yeah. Save it until you can have it. And if somebody gets hurt, put it back. They should have a backup plan. I think that's the problem here. They don't have a backup plan. They write the story like 3 weeks in advance, so they don't have a backup plan. So when someone gets hurt, they have to still go with the story. It's kind of, like we've seen in the past with awful championship matches.
All they're doing is just filling him in for Dean Ambrose. That's all it is.
These stories would be going on exactly the same.
Yeah, they're not changing. They didn't change the script. All they did was delete, delete.
Yes.
Dean Ambrose, insert Jason Jordan. That's all they're doing.
This was like in 1992 when it was supposed to be Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man teaming up to take on Ric Flair, and I think it was not Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair, and the name eludes me at the time. Maybe I think it was Razor Ramon. But Ultimate Warrior pulled out a week before Survivor Series, so they just input Mr. Perfect in there, and it just kept on going. And that's similarly what this seems to be. They're hyping it up the same. They're hyping up just as big. They're just replacing Dean Ambrose, and it's going exactly like I feel it would. And Jason Jordan is probably the heel turn is going to happen in the sense that it's going to be Seth versus
no doubt
Jason Jordan instead of Seth versus Dean. I just wish they had some better backup plans instead of just piecing in people, because that's the problem. Piecing in people, that's what got us to fake Razor and fake Diesel back in 1996.
Yeah, we don't need
when you're
that.
like, we don't know what to do, so we'll just make a new Razor and a new Diesel.
Which is that's to me,
and that's what they're doing here. They're just like, I'm surprised he didn't just come out dressed like Dean Ambrose and just tell the crowd this is Dean.
Are you gonna put a
new
jacket
Dean
on
Ambrose?
You gonna put the whole Shield attire on for him too? Like that. To me, I just think
that's what you did at TLC with Kurt Angle.
It's lazy booking. That's what it is. It's lazy booking.
It's just that they don't have a backup plan. So we saw this week the quote-unquote Bullet Club versus the Shield. Next week, they've already led us up to the Miz Taraj versus the Shield. And then, obviously, it's going to be that because we still have a full 3 hours of Raw before the 25th anniversary of Raw, which is going to be very interesting to see how that works from a booking standpoint.
I can't wait to see it.
But overall,
I'm excited.
I mean, Raw, for the most part, if you were probably watching the College Football Championship over Raw, most of you probably were. You didn't miss out on much. Enzo Amore came back. But, well...
Oh, by the way, did you see the Enzo Amore thing straight to the source? With
I haven't seen that yet, no.
To anyone that hasn't seen it, I highly recommend. Seeing Enzo, off the script, so to speak, off the show, so to speak, he comes off really pompous. I'm not going to lie.
Anytime you ever seen him, anytime you've seen him in the backstage area, even when I drove by him in Orlando, when I saw him in Orlando on the street with his girlfriend, he was exactly...
And by the way, they're not together anymore either. Him and Liv Morgan, they're not together anymore.
But he was dressed the same way, coming out of a club, walking into another club.
That's why...
it's just like he's Ric Flair. He's really the character.
He lives his character. And just seeing how he ripped, and Corey Graves is the interviewer, he's ripping Corey Graves. He was making some really interesting comments. Watching it was very intriguing, but I could tell I felt like Corey Graves kind of felt uncomfortable. It was very Enzo really got into him, and in watching that, he flat out denied the Roman Reigns thing. Remember we talked about that he got kicked off the bus. Mm-hmm. You'll have to watch more of it, but he pretty much said that's not true. He made some really interesting comments, and if you haven't seen it, I know you haven't, but any of our listeners, followers, check it out. It's worth the 15 minutes.
So on SmackDown, we found out there's going to be a 2 out of 3 falls match for the SmackDown Championship. Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin are going to take on the Usos. So just kind of outside of that, I've noticed that last year's Royal Rumble was the first under the quote-unquote 4-hour umbrella. This year, obviously, is going to be the same. But all of a sudden, we got a lot of matches, and we have about 7 matches on the card booked 2 Royal Rumbles, though, because normally you say, okay, well, there's a Royal Rumble in there, and maybe the other match will be short, but you got 2 Royal Rumbles. So one of these how are they going to fit all of this on here? Because you got 2 championship matches, 2 tag team championship matches, the U.S. tournament, and then 2 Royal Rumbles. And essentially, Royal Rumbles are supposed to be, quote unquote, an hour apiece. So if it's a 4-hour show,
there's 2 hours
supposed to be 2 hours right there.
So you got stuff.
5 matches, including 2 world title matches, and a 2 out of 3 fall in under 2 hours.
That's going to be a lot of jam-packed action.
I feel this is going to go past the 11 o'clock hour.
Oh, it definitely is.
Something of this is going to be moved to the kickoff show.
Yeah, I think
maybe one of these tag team title matches.
It could be a combination. It could be a combination. Maybe it's a really long program. I'm looking forward to it regardless. It's going to be a good card.
Why does this have to be a handicap match for the championship? Why can't it just be a triple threat match? That's what I thought it meant when all 3 of them were in there.
Yeah, but now
what exactly does it mean by a handicap match?
So what happens is, and this is what Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn said on SmackDown. They said if we win, we are the tag team champions. The Kevin and Sami show are the champions.
Oh, we are the world champions?
Yeah, they are. It'll be the first co-champion. I'm like, what?
Which, to be honest with you, that then sets up perfectly.
Is that a feud?
To be a feud between the 2 of them for the championship belt.
I think that's where they're going.
I mean, I could just see the poster, one of them holding the belt, and then pulling out it like a tug of rope.
That's where I'm thinking the booking's going on this. This could lead into something, whether it's WrestleMania or SummerSlam. I could see them being a main event in one of these pay-per-views for the championship.
Maybe at WrestleMania, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, here's the thing. If they do it that way, we've already seen Kevin Owens, win. He's already been a champion. It's time to get Sami Zayn a championship. I think, give Sami a chance, so to speak. So I think if they book it the way I think they're going to book it, I think AJ Styles loses that match, which we'll get to, a little bit further down the line. But if they book it that way, it's going to be Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn in a main event to take, winner takes they're the undisputed champion. I would hope at that point, which was obviously taking a few steps, but I hope it is Sami Zayn.
That'd be a good matchup down the line. But either way, this is going to be interesting because, you don't see a lot of handicap matches a lot of times.
No.
Again, normally triple threat. That's what I thought they meant by what it was going to be. It was going to be a triple threat match because that would essentially still be 2-on-1. But where you have to actually tag the other guy in a championship match, it's kind of difficult. One guy then has to forfeit essentially going for the champion to tag the other person in.
I got to make a point here. What's going on with SmackDown is very interesting. With our boy, what's his name there, the hype bro there,
Mojo Rawley.
Mojo, he's on a tear right now. I got to tell you, this is a little spoiler alert. The way I'm looking at things right now, it's setting him up to win the United States Championship.
I think Jinder Mahal is going to be in that championship match as well. That's the way you got to keep him relevant. And it's kind of like you take a lot of times these guys, they go down OVW to rebuild their characters or NXT back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of similar what I'm seeing here with Jinder Mahal. He's not the world champion anymore, but they don't want to drop him. So they dropped him to the U.S. title to kind of build him back up. I'm not saying all the way back up to a world championship match, but I think back up into a sense of keeping him relevant.
On SmackDown next week, you heard it here first. I am predicting Mojo Rawley to upset the Glorious One. I'm just putting it out there right now.
That would be a big upset because I'm thinking it's going to be Bobby Roode versus Jinder Mahal.
I don't see it. Bobby Roode, to me, I love his gimmick. I love Glorious. But right now, I'm just getting this feeling that they're really pushing Mojo. He's been really cutting some good promos on the air and on social media. I think he's on fire right now. I think he put on a great match. And by the way, he demolished Zack Ryder in that match. That was destruction at its finest. And that was I haven't seen Mojo wrestle that well. I think they're pushing him in that direction. I would not be surprised if not only he beats the Glorious One coming up here on the next episode of SmackDown, but taking it a little bit further. I think he's right now I'm hedging my bets on U.S. title new champion. It's gonna be Mojo, I think.
All right, that's going to do it for this segment. When we return, our Twitter question of the week, our tweet of the week, and we wrap up this week's edition of the show. You are listening and watching the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.
The New York Jets are rising and are ready to compete in the AFC. Boyd Green and Ty Butler will give you everything you need to know about the Jets every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. From reviewing the previous game and looking ahead to the next matchup, to all of the news and 4 downs, the Jet Zone has everything. Follow @BoydGreen25 and @TyDButler on Twitter. Proud member of Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
This program is simulcast on WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Go to ratpacksports.com for more information.
Do you want to stay up to date on the latest sports news? Come check out After the Whistle from 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday night. We talk about the NHL, we talk about the NFL, we talk about the MLB. You name it, we got it. Tune in on Sports War Radio.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Let's get back to the action. This is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio.
Heel to the Face podcast is back on Sports War Radio, iTunes, YouTube, all the traditional platforms. And it is time for our Twitter question of the week, as well as our tweet of the week. So let's skip to our Twitter question of the week, and it was this. If you had $300, because that is currently what the going rate is for both these events on StubHub, which is the only place to get them because they're both sold out, would you go to the 25th anniversary show of Raw at the Hammerstein Ballroom? Or would you go to the Royal Rumble? Now, granted, that's where these tickets are starting. I'm not saying you're in good seats at one, bad seats at the other. Just get in the door, probably average to below average seats for both. But you got $300 and you got to buy one ticket. Raw 25, Royal Rumble. What are you picking?
No brainer. Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble to me is my besides I mean, honestly, I mean WrestleMania, yes, is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. To me, I'm a Royal Rumble guy. Royal Rumble to me is the event of the year for me. I love Royal Rumble. I love SummerSlam. I love Survivor Series. To me, Royal Rumble is the main event of the year for me. That's the best. It's the best show of the year. I tune in like I don't tune in anything. I'm like zoned in. Sometimes when I'm watching those pay-per-view matches, like on regular like Payback, I'm watching, but sometimes I'm just kind of like I'll kind of I'll talk to someone next to me or whatever, whoever I'm watching it with, and I'm not like in tune. Royal Rumble, I'm in. I'm invested 100%. So for me, it's easy. $300 if I had to choose, Royal Rumble all day long.
So 75% of our audience chose the Royal Rumble. 25% chose Raw at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And the reason I chose the Hammerstein Ballroom, obviously because, well, it's not $300 to get into the Barclays Center. But the big sell here is WWE doesn't really have, Madison Square Garden can be, quote-unquote, their home. But the Hammerstein Ballroom is up there where if you never got a chance to go see the Mets play at Shea Stadium, you never got a chance, to go see the LA Lakers play at the Great Western Forum, this is your chance in the WWE world to go someplace that they don't ever go to. This is kind of like going back to Yankee Stadium. And this is where Raw was back in the day. This is where a lot of, wrestling shows were back in the day. And the wrestling shows are still there now. But the WWE obviously plays to much bigger audience nowadays. And Monday Night Raw is a much different animal than it was back in 1993, 1994. So going to the Hammerstein Ballroom, it's not because of the event itself. The Royal Rumble, you're paying for the event. This, you're paying, seems like everything other than the event. Because from what I've been known, the Miz versus Roman Reigns, the IC title match, that's going to happen at Barclays Center. So what I also have been told is that only about an hour of the show is going to be from the Hammerstein Ballroom. I don't know if that means they're going to be, when it's not from the Hammerstein Ballroom, they're going to just be watching on TV. They're going to have a bunch of dark matches. I mean, I've heard a few of the legends, maybe like The Undertaker might go to both venues. But when it comes to the actual amount of content, from what I've been led to believe is this Raw is actually at the Hammerstein is going to have less content than the one at the Barclays Center. Most of the stuff that's happening is going to happen at the Barclays Center. This is really just 100% just going to be a nostalgia trip, coming back with The Undertaker, with Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, with, Kevin Nash. They're going to show up on Raw, maybe, cut a promo. There might be, an old school kind of match.
You're going to see DX on there too, for sure. But I did see that.
I feel that, again, this is just, if you're paying to go see Raw at the Hammerstein Ballroom, it's all about a nostalgia trip. The Royal Rumble is the opposite. It's all about the actual in-ring competition. And I don't know. This is a tough one. You don't know the next time you're going to get a chance to see Raw or WWE in general at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And I had the same kind of question with a couple people years ago when Raw did an old school Raw right before WrestleMania 32, and a lot of people were like, WrestleMania 32 is not turning out to be the greatest card. But the Raw, the old school Raw, seems like it could be more fun, and they had a lot of, old school style matches. So there were some people I had the same question with who were picking old school Raw over WrestleMania because, the card was better and the nostalgia factor. And I'm kind of saying the same thing with the Royal Rumble. It's the Royal Rumble, but it is probably, I would say, this Raw I would rather go to than a lot of other pay-per-views.
You would go to the Raw 25 over the pay-per-views?
Over Payback?
Yeah, you're right. I would definitely go. I mean, here's the thing, though. What are we going to see? We're going to see DX do what they normally do. They're going to cut their normal promo like they always do. I mean, are they going to have X-Pac there?
Here's the thing. WWE, the reason tickets are so high, not just because it's such a small event, because, again, WWE, they actually started, because they know they don't have a lot of space, started tickets very high for this. At about like $125, they started the pricing. So even if you bought a ticket from WWE and you had a chance, you waited in line, you paid $125 to get in. So obviously you can't guarantee people $300 worth of entertainment, but they better damn well guarantee people $125 worth of entertainment who paid to go to this event.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, though, it's only going to be an hour's worth of stuff you're hearing, right?
That's what I'm hearing. So,
hopefully that's not the case if you're spending that kind of money. Royal Rumble, you're getting what, 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah,
I'm paying up for the Royal Rumble. I'll pay extra for the Royal Rumble over the Raw 25. I am comfortable watching the Royal Rumble or the Raw 25 on my couch. I'm fine with that. Royal Rumble, if I could foot it this year, I would go right now because I'd go to this one because it's in Philly.
And there's a lot of good stuff at this Royal Rumble. This seems like the most jam-packed card.
We were just saying
the Royal Rumble.
We were just saying how are they going to fit all these matches in 2 hours? Because we think the men's and women's are at least. I would say that
this is why that women's Royal Rumble should have been 20.
There's the thing: the men's and women's Royal Rumble. I think the women's Royal Rumble is going to be shorter.
I think the women's Royal Rumble is going to kick off the show.
You think so?
I think it's going to kick off the show because I feel they're going to bookend the show with Royal Rumbles.
Okay, so you think women's start, finish, men's? I get it. I mean, you're not going to do 30 men. There are 30 women.
You're not going to do an hour Royal Rumble match and then an hour Royal. Yeah, I feel the women's Royal Rumble is going to kick off the show.
You would. That would make the most sense, just so you get people to tune in right away. I think so you can get the eyeballs. Because here's the thing: people are going to want to see let's see, is Ronda Rousey going to be there? So guess what? You get eyeballs on there right at the beginning of the show, where instead of booking it, we're like, oh yeah, we're going to have it somewhere in the show, and then to close out the show, we're going to have the men's.
And
so I get that.
I can almost guarantee. In years past, we've seen it before. 1995, when Shawn Michaels went from 1 to 30, that was 1 minute intervals. People see, and WWE likes to muck up their history a little bit of like, hey, Shawn Michaels was the first person. Yeah, because that year you changed the rules to 1 minute intervals versus 2 minute intervals, which means that he won the Royal Rumble in like 34 minutes.
Yeah.
So
60,
but there's people like Kane who've never won the Royal Rumble who've lasted 50 minutes before.
Rey Mysterio had a long time.
What I'm saying is I know this won't be a 1 minute interval Royal Rumble, but I know it won't be a 2 minute interval. It'll be that 90-second. I think that's the most popular one they've used is the minute and a half thereafter.
I feel
that's what we're going to do because that's about 45 minutes, and that gives you about 5-6 minutes of after everyone's in time. So I feel by 8 o'clock Eastern time, the Women's Royal Rumble will be over. So it'll be like...
I think it's going to be I think total runtime between the two, I would say about an hour and 45 minutes.
I say one of the tag team title matches is kicking off at 8 o'clock, and that essentially would then make it seem like a normal Royal Rumble, because then you have the non-Royal Rumble matches and the in the old time slot of what would have been 8 o'clock Eastern to 11 o'clock Eastern. Now it's 7 o'clock Eastern to 11 o'clock Eastern. So I feel that 7 to 8 is going to be the Women's Royal Rumble, and then 8 is going to be matches until 10, and then the Men's Royal Rumble to finish us off till 11.
I can't wait. I mean, Raw 25 should be fun, and then we got the Royal Rumble coming up. This is going to be a good stretch in programming. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen here.
All right, keeping the Twitter activity going, it is time for our tweets of the week. Mine needs a little bit of context. I'll go first. So this came from at WrestleRap, WRASSLERAP. Now, they subtweeted Impact Wrestling, and I kind of wanted to get to this in the beginning of the show, but how about this? Impact Wrestling is changing things up. Once again, they're back to the 4-sided regular ring. They're doing a whole week's worth of tapings. They've got some new ownership in there to start off the new year. They're trying some brand new stuff once again. They now have a partnership, it seems to be going with Twitch, so they might be going that route. Obviously, we know all the trouble they've had with television networks.
Yeah.
So they kicked off, and again, this is how you kick off a new promotion. This is how you this is how you essentially get a new year into wrestling. So 4-sided ring, the first episode from the 4-sided ring, and it's not really much of a spoiler because Impact Wrestling put it out there, probably to get you to watch it. Austin Aries is the new Impact Heavyweight World Champion.
Really?
So Austin Aries, he's Impact Wrestling, and he made a quote-unquote impact. So WrestleRap, to kind of quote, the last time that a federation kind of put out there that a championship was changing hands takes us back to old WCW days when they were fighting with Nitro, or WCW Nitro when they were fighting with Raw. And Tony Schiavone used to give out the raw results of episodes that might have been taped the week earlier, which essentially made it so now that we don't have anything that's taped. Raw is live every single week, but they didn't feel they had to be live until Nitro started giving away the results of pre-taped Raws. And they made sure Tony Schiavone's infamous line where he says, oh, and later, don't you change that channel. Later tonight, we heard Mick Foley's going to win the world title. That'll put some butts in the seats. And essentially that did the opposite effect. Everyone said, what, Raw? He's going to win the world title. They all switched over to Raw, and that was about the time that Raw started to once again retake their hold on the Monday Night War, because if a world title is going to change hands, just like Impact Wrestling's doing here, they want to put it out there so that you do tune in.
I will say this.
So the tweet of the week comes from WrestleRap, where they subtweeted the Austin Aries winning the championship, and they added, that'll put some butts in the seats.
Impact Wrestling, bravo. Austin Aries is a great pick. So I will say bravo. I still don't think you're going to do crap.
No, I mean, I don't. They've had everyone under the sun. That's the problem. And that's why, somebody I follow closely, Josh Eisenberg, he works with WrestleZone. He specifically said on Twitter that I read that he doesn't believe in Impact Wrestling. And for the same reason I don't. They've already had everybody. What can you do? You've had the talent. We gave you Hulk Hogan. We gave you Ric Flair. We gave you Sting. We gave you the Dudley Boys. We gave you AJ Styles. If you can't beat the WWE with all those guys,
you're not beating them.
It's not happening.
Good luck.
You've had the talent. If you don't have the TV time and you don't have the following, then you don't have it. Because they've had a WrestleMania card worthy of guys. They've had everyone that you think of under the sun. Like I said, AJ Styles,
Ric Flair,
Hulk Hogan, Sting. They've had Kurt Angle. They've had them all, and they're still where they are.
They're still getting their butts kicked. I don't see anything changing now. Speaking of some changes coming up here, I don't know if you saw it. I'll get to my tweet of the week here in just a second, just to kind of preface it a little bit. So the Miz came out and said he's got a TV show coming up, so that'll be cool. He's executive producer. Him and Maurice are going to have their own TV show. Kind of seeing what that's going to be all about. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to play. Now, watching him on Total Divas and whatnot, you get a cool perspective of how him and Maurice are, and they're going to have their child pretty soon here. So that's going to be interesting timing because
things are happening really fast. I feel like she must have been 3 months pregnant when she made that announcement.
Yeah,
same with Maria Kanellis. I mean, she's just blowing up. It's like she just seemed like she just announced she was pregnant like last week.
Yeah, time flies, and the funny timing is, depending on how things go, it could be right around WrestleMania time. So we'll see how that plays out. But getting to the tweet of the week, it's a tweet from The Miz. He says, and I have to preface it with a picture. It's a picture of him kind of laying over Roman Reigns at the end of the show on Monday night. It says, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Good to see you, Roman. #Raw at WWE. And I just said here, hey, Glad to see the A-listers back on TV. It's must-see TV. So I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen next. Miz right now, he is the wrestler of the year, and a lot of people were saying Kenny Omega. I don't disagree with the Miz. I think the Miz has done a great job. He's great on the mic. He's must-see TV, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next with the Miz.
So you want to see Miz versus Kenny Omega? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm in. Book it. We won't see it for at least a year.
That would exactly be the reason why. That's why you don't want to see Kenny Omega join WWE. You know all these people we always talk about. We'd like to see join WWE, and then New Japan Wrestling, the Wrestle Kingdom, kind of made me think. You know what? No. I don't want to see. I was going to say Will Ospreay. That's the guy I want to see in NXT. No, I want to see Will Ospreay where he is, because that's going to be the best. Or I want to see Kenny Omega where he is, because when he comes to WWE, it's going to be Kenny Omega versus The Miz, and that's why I don't want Kenny Omega to come to WWE.
What's wrong with that, though? The Miz is still a good competitor.
He is a good competitor, but I just feel that
they would put on a great match. I think.
I feel that that's the thing. If any of these people ever come to WWE, it just.
I don't see Kenny Omega coming, though.
No, because I don't look at Cody Rhodes. I mean,
Cody Rhodes is coming
back. What do
you
think they would do with Cody Rhodes if they brought him back to WWE?
He'd probably be mid-card.
He'd probably be back to Stardust.
No,
but he'd be...
No way. They're not going to...
Yeah, he'd be Dolph Ziggler. He would be what Dolph Ziggler just was for the last 5 years.
I wouldn't say that.
They're not putting him in the world title picture.
Why wouldn't they? He's proven that he's a commodity now.
Because Vince McMahon doesn't care what the wrestling world thinks. Vince McMahon has his idea of wrestling, and he's going to stick to that idea.
But he didn't always.
That's
stick
why
to
Roman Reigns is pushed till the end of time.
But Daniel Bryan was not the choice that they had. But the fans took it over, so to speak, and we had the yes movement.
I mean, we have a few moments of Vince McMahon having to cave into pressure. But we
Rhodes,
still keep getting Roman Reigns pushed to the sky.
We're still going to. I'm telling you right now, Cody Rhodes will be back in WWE soon. I don't see Kenny Omega because, number one, he trashed.
Do you see Cody Rhodes in WWE in 2018?
Ooh. Yes.
Do you see Cody Rhodes within 6 months of being in WWE competing for either world title?
Yes.
All right, so you heard it here first. The icebreaker over here trying to set us up with a hot take to end this week's program. Cody Rhodes in WWE in 2018 and competing for the championship within 6 months of his return. So we bookend the show. We talk about New Japan Wrestling, and that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. As you've been listening to Heel to the Face podcast with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, Jared Wicks, and don't forget, once again, our Twitter handle at Heel to the Face. This has been a presentation of Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.